Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live. We've got a monster stage at the Giro, stage number 9. It feels like the Giro's going pretty quick, but it's probably going a bit slower on the ground, doing some actual work throughout the day. I'm joined as always by 4-time national road champion Johnny Trevorrow and Team Bike Exchange head DS Matt White. Start off with you, Whitey. How the boys recover from a pretty big stage number 8?
Good, mate. It was a pretty intense battle to make the break there. The first 35k was pretty stressful in the crosswinds, and once that break finally stuck, it was a pretty steady day. There was obviously two big battles out there. One for the 7 or 8 guys up the road, and then it was quite conservative run to the line, and it was just all about safety and getting Simon Yates to the line in that front group. So couple of boxes ticked there yesterday. Now moving on to today to a pretty short but pretty intense mountain day.
Yeah, looking at there, so there's some decent climbs there. We've got, but it's that finale Cat 1 climb. Would you say this is probably the toughest challenge of the Giro so far, mate?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the tricky part of today, we finish on dirt today as well. The last 1.5 kilometers is on dirt. It's a solid day, but I think we're going to see a really aggressive start to the stage, and depends on how out of control that first phase of the race is there with FDJ and what key teams do. It's going to be rude no matter what. But I think today is probably the most challenging stage so far in this year's race.
So Johnny? I was going to say, do you reckon a break will try and get up the road? I mean, it's a monster day, but there'll be definitely some guys who want to get up the road. And I don't know that FDJ will be worrying so much about trying to contain it. But the way Ineos have been setting the pace so far in this every mountain stage, they probably will have the pace on early. But do you think a break will get away?
Oh, I would expect one will, yeah. I definitely do. And I don't think FDJ will have much say in what goes. As you can see from the profile there is very, very little flat. You are just on a climb, straight down to the descent, onto another one. And look, there's certain teams that have sort of been marking each other out of breakaways. And I think if the right combination goes again, I can see a break going down the road. And it depends how Ineos want to ride this one. It's I think they're in a good position going into a sprint stage, which is then the rest day, and then obviously everybody knows the big gravel stage after that. So I think they'll be content there. That they have been going hard after these finals. So we'll see how it plays out in the early phase of the race there. But we'll be very attentive from kilometre 0 to the movement of certain teams today.
I'll tell you one team who will be in that break, Androni, because I reckon Gianni Savio, my old boss, would have been really dark on the fact that they didn't make that break for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, it was a hard one to get in. It was a hard one. Look, the problem I think that team probably had there is they have got a team of climbers, and actually the break. Everyone was so exhausted after an hour and a half of full gas racing in the crosswinds that the little fellas and you saw the combination of that break yesterday. Yeah. There were some sprinters in there and some guys who normally wouldn't be in a break on a mountain stage, but that was because of the first half of the day. And I think today will be a lot more selective and a lot easier for the climbers to make that selection today.
Now, for stage 11, I get the gravel sections. There's 4 of them. They're sort of spread out near the finale. But what is the point of the last 1.5K of gravel? Is this just for the TV cameras, get a bit of dirt on the jersey? What's the point of the last little bit?
Jonesy, you've been to Italy plenty of times, mate. It's called drama.
Oh, yeah. But really, what sort of drama are you going to get? I mean,
punctures?
I suppose, yeah.
Crashes.
Yeah.
At least it's up it wouldn't be too bad.
I was there a few weeks ago, and I couldn't see the last 1.5 kilometres because it was covered in snow. So we've got people looking at that this morning, but depends what the final product looks like onto how that gravel's going to look in 5 or 6 hours' time.
Do they hose it down? Remember they used to hose down the gravel sections if it was getting a bit dusty back in the day?
Yeah, but this is like a fire trail in a ski area. So
right.
I actually don't know. Like I said, we've got people going ahead and giving us that information soon. But like I said, 3 weeks ago, it's a ski area, so it was covered in snow not that long ago. And looking out my window now, we're at 800 now, but there's still a lot of snow around. So I wouldn't be surprised, seeing the little weather of the last couple of weeks, that the dirt will be finishing, maybe even snow on either side of it.
Hey, in other news, great to see the Demon, the king of the garlic bulbs, roasted style, Damien Housen, saluting at the Tour of Hungary. That must have been pretty rapt to see the Demon on the top step.
Yeah, mate. He was third there last year on the and he was in the jersey last year, lost the jersey on that climb, and he's made amends for it this year, and he nailed that climb yesterday to the line, and touch wood, the boys have got to defend a 90k circuit race in Budapest this afternoon, and then we'll have our second stage race or third stage race win for the year wrapped up. So it's a big effort from Damo. He got some great support from his teammates, and he finished it off really well. And today's like a real short, intense 90k stage, and I think Caden Groves will be up for that one as well.
I watched a bit of it. You'd probably be too busy, Whitey, but I watched a bit of it along highlights package last night. I was impressed with Kevin Colliani. I don't know much about him, but gee, he did a good job.
Yeah, so he's a neo-pro with us, and he was second in the Baby Giro 2 years ago. Really young, talented lad. Has fitted into the team very, very well. I had him at Tour of the Alps a couple of weeks ago, and he did a splendid job looking after Simon Yates. And he's a big talent we've got in the team, and he's been really progressing very, very well in his first year professional.
We've got a fan question from David. He says, how's Cam going? Cam Meyer.
Yeah, look, I'm not a doctor, but I think we've seen I think Cam's definitely passed the worst of his illness. He looked a lot better yesterday after the stage. In the stage is one thing, but some of those consecutive days in the wet with his illness certainly didn't help him. But I think we've passed the worst with Cam, and he gets through today. We've got a flat day tomorrow, then a rest day, and fingers crossed we can nurse him through the next 48 hours, and he can be back nearly at 100% in a couple of days' time.
Now, look, I know it's hectic, and you're in the middle of a grand tour, and I'm sorry to waking you up earlier too, Matty, but can you get Cam? Not today, but maybe on the rest day, just to give Dan a call and just to tell him how to toughen up a little bit. That'd be really, really good. Right?
Well, for starters, he gets paid more than me, so that's an incentive. He's at one of the biggest bike races in the world. I'm just doing this bloody virtual podcast. I mean, there's all these other factors you got to weigh up, John.
Just
Hey,
mate, hard enough.
What was on the menu last night, Whitey? What region are you in at the moment?
Mate, I honestly don't know what region I'm in at the moment.
You're in the middle.
No seafood.
I'm smack. No, there's no seafood. No, I'm smack bang in the middle of Italy, and I think we're finishing today basically inland from Rome. Okay. We're not in the Lazio region finishing, but I think around Aquila, around that region. But this sort of part of Italy, we don't go through that often. At the end of the stage, more so. But yesterday was the furthest point we're in Italy, and today we're going direction north, 160k, one direction through the mountains, and beautiful ones they are. And but I don't know what region we're in. But the food last night, as usual, was very good. I had a couple of local dishes, one which like a bit of a stew with lots of beans and a couple of bit of sausage in there. And it was a real hearty main course, and then the pasta dish. I can't remember what flavor it was, but it was nice. It was a nice one.
And the other thing I noticed, which is a bit weird, is normally the rest days fall on a Monday. They're falling both on a Tuesday at the Giro this year. Is that the norm now?
No, I think, Jonesy, the organisers are just linking towns, and sometimes it logistically. And traditionally, yeah, we have had our rest days on Mondays, But even the last year or two, there's been the odd Tuesday rest day on the Tour de France. So I think the organisers are just linking the towns, and some places, because we have been in a quite remote part of Italy, it's actually quite it's harder to accommodate the caravan and everyone involved in some regions than others. So we'll be Jonesy, we'll be at the Perugia Park Hotel, the one where we had our little boxing sparring on the balcony. The one we've stayed at many a time before. That's where we're gonna spend our rest day, in Perugia. But it's a bigger city, and it's a lot easier to accommodate everyone around the Giro in bigger towns like that.
The best string of hotels was on the coast there when we finished Torino Adriatico, and that time I flooded the room when one of the guys was draining one of the ice baths. He had a bit of hose running into the shower, and I went in for a shower, so I pulled the hose out and didn't realise that it was leaking water. Came back, there was a foot of water.
I do remember that, because I came back from a walk or a run, and I remember just seeing a bit of a fountain coming off the second story. Story. Mate, you were lucky. Remember, one, you were lucky you didn't ruin all your camera equipment, and two, you didn't electrocute yourself.
I know. I remember walking out and my power board was underwater, and I thought, that's not good for a number of reasons. But yeah, we dodged a bullet there, and we're alive to tell the tale. So just got to appreciate the wins.
Yeah, and actually, that town we were there 48 hours ago.
Yeah, right. Was it pumping, or it's pretty dead?
Look, I think if you guys have seen the footage, the crowds here, we're waiting till we get to the big weekend stages. We'll find out today, but maybe not today is a good example, because we are in a quite isolated part of Italy. But through the towns and the start and finish areas, it's pretty much been Giro as normal, just with people with masks on. So I think, like we discussed at the start of the race, people here in Europe are over being locked down. They're over not being able to go watch sporting events. And unlike stadium sports, which are still restricted here, the Giro's free. It's on the roads. It's close to them. They love it. They think it's their race. The Italians have a big passion for their race, the Giro, and they're coming out in droves to watch us.
Just slip it back to today's stage, because it is a monster. Have you got any special plan, or is it just keep up the front and keep out of trouble?
I certainly do have a plan, but I am aware that other people do watch this podcast, Johnny.
Why do you throw a decoy out?
I will not be giving it out.
Why don't you just make one up and just say, we're going to light it up on the third climb, or... I don't know.
I know that Jerry's listening live tonight, so I just wanted to give him a little bit of an up, but I'm sure he'll call you himself and get all the update. I've been very impressed with Nick Schultz. I'm a big fan of Nick. He's come through the hard way, not through the normal Australian Institute of Sport and all that sort of stuff. He was raced as an amateur, and I remember he had a little stint with Green Edges Stagiaire, didn't quite get in at that time. Went to Spain, rode with a small team, rode the Vueltas, and then suddenly he just kept improving. And I really like the way he's stepped up this year. And he's been, doing a great job as last man standing for Simon so far in this Giro. So, what's been the big impetus for Nick for the big step up in this last 12 months?
I just think people develop at different speeds, John. I think he's just been improving gradually over the last few years. He's like I said, he won a stage at Tour de l'Avenir when he was an amateur. He's always had class, and when we stagiaired him, we just didn't have room to take him that year. But we'd seen what he'd done that year. We wanted to give him an opportunity to impress and get a contract. But he came into the team as a stagiaire, knowing that he wasn't going to get a contract. But we said, look, let's stay in touch. And we did. He did 2 years at Cajarural, gained some great experience there. And then after he finished his first contract, we brought him on board here. And he's, to me, what's the impetus? I just think it's been time. I think he's just matured, and he's gained a lot of confidence, and that confidence has been snowballing. And I think what gave him a big boost was the effort that he showed. He was able to do in Tour of the Alps, especially, and And when we saw the level that he was at Tour of the Alps, he was always coming to the Giro for the last 2 or 3 months, but we can now use him in a role that maybe we wouldn't have expected 12 months ago, and that's a really good bonus for the organisation.
Yeah, impressive.
Now, you were saying that other teams or whoever watch, Rob Hatch, the Eurosport commentator, was spewing because he said, "Here was me hoping to get that plan and give it out." So can you give Eurosport any nuggets they can use for the commentary today, mate?
Nope.
Donuts. All right, mate. Well, we better let you go. You got to head off to the start and get it all sorted. So wish you all the best today. It's definitely going to be a spectacular finish there with the gravel, mate. Looking forward to it.
Oh, mate.
No,
I'll try not to wake you up tomorrow.
Johnny. No messages before 7 would be appreciated there, mate. That'd be good.
Yeah. No, if you can come on the show earlier, it helps us out, mate. So 4, 5 in the morning. Johnny will just ping you.
Well, you know, Jonesy, that I am an early riser, and when I saw Johnny's message there at 5:47, I just rolled over there and tried to go back to sleep there, and then Johnny, when he re-messaged me at 7, I hadn't responded. I was getting ready to go for a run, mate. So I had a bit of a busy morning this morning.
That's my fault because I wanted to go out and have a few beers with my mates for dinner. I said, "Hey, do you reckon Whitey could go on early?" And Whitey goes, and if he goes, "Yeah, he's up at Asparagus Fart," I'll message him. I didn't know it was that early. So that's my bad.
Sorry,
mate.
And just remember, guys, the time zone hasn't changed. Okay. The time zone hasn't changed. I'm not 1 or 2 hours behind you, and I always enjoy helping you guys out. But it did wake me up this morning at 5:47. But
do that again.
I'll put it on mute tomorrow morning. All
right, I've been red carded. All right, mate.
Oh, mate.
We'll see you tomorrow at normal time. We appreciate all your help.
No worries, guys. Have a good day, and it'll certainly be a great way to spend anyone's Saturday afternoon watching today's stage. It's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah,
all right, good stuff. All the best, mate. Take it easy.
Okay, see you, gents.
See you, mate. That was obviously Matt White. Now we've got Michael Rogers, the innovation manager for the UCI, coming up, Iffy. But before we chat to Dodge, we're going to have a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at Bike Exchange. Before we bring Dodge on, Iffy, how did run out sale go yesterday with Bike Exchange?
I hear it was very, very successful. I was sort of a little bit tied up, so I didn't get actually down there, but it was, it went really well.
Well, it looks like you picked up a bargain yourself. You're wearing the cycling kit. Couldn't have a wash before you come on the show, mate?
No, because I've just been out for my late afternoon ride and got all the gear on. It's a sort of old model, Orica Green Edge, but team mascots are always a little bit slow getting the latest gear.
All right. Well, as we said before the break, we've got the UCI Innovation Manager joining us live, and that is, of course, Michael Rogers. Can you hear us, Michael?
Hello, Dan.
How are you, mate?
How are you? Hey, John, how are you? Good to see you.
Dodge, I'm really well, mate. Great to see you.
Now, tradition on this show, Michael, is anyone connected with the UCI, we just unload all the issues that are between the public and the UCI. But we probably won't do that because that was more our shtick with Alan Davis. You're on more the virtual riding side, and John's a bit of a cycling nerd and a boffin, so he'll have some great questions and insights there. But first of all, mate, how is the role going?
Listen, it's been going really well, thank you. There's been quite a lot of stuff going on at the moment. UCI has very much been in the public eye, I guess, as being the government of world cycling. It always is. But the innovation role itself has been there's projects coming onto my table, particularly in the virtual cycling space, particularly a lot around rules and regulations, which I also lead up the technical unit, which is, in essence, makes all bike and clothing regulations. So it's been a very, very busy time.
Well, there's a lot to unpack. Do you want to start off giving us a bit of insight? I saw an article, it was about a month ago or so now, announcing the IOC partnership with like the virtual series. Do you want to explain what that actually is?
Yeah, sure. So in partnership with the IOC and Swift, we've been working in the background to bring the first ever Olympic virtual series, I guess, into the virtual space. And it's a little bit, I would say, different to what you'd consider as a normal Olympic event where the world's elite are taking part, where in the virtual space, this particular partnership is more about participation and mass riding and bringing people together. So there's no special prerequisites. You don't have to be an Olympic star. You don't have to be a professional cyclist to take part. Anyone who has a Swift account or who wishes to join up to Swift on a free trial can take part in the IOC virtual series, taking place from the 1st of June all the way to the 27th. So a month of Olympic-themed events for the virtual cycling community.
So if you take
photo
part,
that you just had up there, Dan, the bloke at the back in that photo, he looked like he was in the super tuck position. That's illegal.
Oh, yeah, that's illegal. No, he's out. Hey, I was thinking, if you take part in that event, does that technically make you an Olympian then?
A V-Olympian, I think.
V-Olympian.
Yeah, virtual Olympian.
Yeah.
Did I just coin a new term, I think?
You did. You did. You need to start parking some domain names, mate.
It is. No, listen, it's all about, bringing the cycling community together. It's not about elite. It's more about mass participation, as I mentioned before, giving everyone a taste of, being part of a virtual experience. And I think it's also a big move from the IOC to connect with younger generations. And because we are seeing that younger generation interact with the Olympic Games in a very different way to probably the three of us would have done. We're watching Olympic Games on the television. They come around every 4 years. You dedicate that 3 or 4 weeks of your year just to watching all kinds of sports. It's very evident that younger generations don't do that in the same way. So the Olympic movement needs to start to move into speaking languages that younger generations understand and that I guess copies or imitates the way and how they interact with the world today, which is probably via a telephone or an iPad or in some kind of virtual space. So I think it's a very interesting move by the IOC, and I think from the UCI's perspective, being in that innovative space is very interesting.
Are they going to be offering up like Olympic medals? Like, are they going to have like finals and proper ceremonies or anything like that? Or is it just aligning the brand at this stage to get, as you said, mass participation?
Well, I think right now, Dan, it's about more aligning the brand. I think probably by Los Angeles, I think there'll be a high chance that physical esports, so esports where you actually have to put some physical effort into, that could be an Olympic event. So I think it's about testing the waters now, trying to understand how the sector works, looking for places where we can improve, looking for places where, how do we judge the sport? Being of a virtual nature, of course, it's impossible to put 100, maybe 100,000 commissaires in different places. So what are the tools that we're going to put into place to be able to understand, if a performance was authentic. So it's an extremely exciting space, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it, because it is quite a massive step in sport, and how esports affects that whole Olympic movement. I think it's just amazing, and we've still got a lot of learning to do. We've got some fantastic esports platforms currently in the space, particularly within cycling. And I think it's going to be a very interesting, next 5, 6, 10 years within the Olympic space.
Iffy?
Yeah, we interviewed Jay Vine, a couple of months back, and it was just, to me, it just blew me away that he, through that Swift Academy, he ended up riding his first pro race with a World Tour team who had never really even seen him before, and he stepped up and almost won the damn thing. And I just couldn't believe how that all eventuated.
Well, I think you've hit a really interesting point there, because let's step back 10 years, John, or maybe even 20 years, in the Australian cycling scene. The path that I took, which was go to the Australian Institute of Sport under Shane Bannon, Brian Stevens, through that whole progression of, let's say, a government public funded sporting program, I think that scenery is changing a lot, and we don't have those programs currently in Australia and many other places of the world right now, where there's that path to go from grassroots all the way to the top of the sport, the Olympic Games, the Tour de France. That's very much changing, and whether that will be replaced by the virtual space or cycling esports, whether it will completely change, I don't know, but I can very much see a big part of that, or some part of that will be a valid pathway to get to the professional ranks. So again, it's just a really, really interesting space, and I'm so happy to be leading that from the UCI's side.
I don't obviously ride, but all I know of is Zwift, really, in terms of these like platforms. But how many are in that virtual space? It seems like, given that it is growing so quick, there's going to be competitors. And how, as the UCI, do you sort of start regulating that side of things?
Well, we've got probably 5 really big players right now. So you have Road Grand Tours. Obviously, Swift is the biggest, but you have some really interesting platforms coming up with Road Grand Tours, or RGT. We've got Be Cool. We've got Ruvi. We've got another couple coming out. We've got Whoosh coming out of United Arab Emirates. So you have got a couple of players there, very innovative. They're coming up with different ideas, different ways of different race formats. It's a really interesting space, and I don't know which one is going to win over the longer run. But I'm really happy there's those 4 or 5 players in the game, all having different perspectives of how the virtual space should be. Dan, to answer your question about how does the UCI regulate that, that takes a whole new set of regulations, a whole new set of rules to be able to do that. And one of the things we're working very hard on right now behind the scenes is a homologation process of all the home trainer devices. Right now you have 5 or 6, 7 different brands, home trainer brands, all measuring power in a different way. And so what the UCI's goal is to bring in some kind of certification process that would ensure that power measurement from one brand to the next is very much the same, or it's very in a close range between each other. Because what happens in the esports space is what determines velocity or speed in the virtual space. Okay, so that's the amount of power you're pushing on the pedals. It's about your body weight, your physical body weight in the real world. Those are factors or variables that determine your speed in the virtual world. Okay, so to give you an example, if I lie about my weight to type into the computer software that I weigh 30 kilograms, but I really weigh 80, then of course you're going to have a 50 kilogram advantage, and you're going to go a lot faster for the same amount of
Dan would be no good. Dan lies about his weight all the time, so he'd be no good.
I was going to say I lied about my weight once, but it was for skydiving, and they busted me. They made me get on the scales anyway. Had to pay $20 US fat tax.
But what does that mean in skydiving? the more you weigh, the bigger parachute you have to put on.
I don't know what it was, but if you're over 200 pounds, you had to pay $2 per pound you're over. And this is 10 years ago, and I was 220, so I was pushing 100 kegs.
Yeah.
I had to pay 40 US fat tax. So I don't know. It's not bungee jumping.
Very dangerous to put your weight down when you're jumping out of a plane, mate. I wouldn't have done that. But sorry to interrupt there, Dodge. You were just
listen. There's one thing I can guarantee:
$40.
the UCI will never put a fat tax on.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. You're saying as well though with innovation with technology. There is one photo that you sent through, and that was of Garner's TT bike. And is there a big development now with 3D printing with components?
Yeah, there is, Dan. That's a really good question. Is I see a massive movement in the bike construction and manufacturing sector with 3D printing, and this is just an example of Garner's bike at the Giro that he won the first prologue stage on. If you look at his handlebar, I mean that's a 3D titanium printed handlebar. And what's really interesting and fascinating is the current set of regulations about equipment that the UCI has in place, which I'm in charge of, just isn't designed for this kind of innovation and custom made material where we have quite standards. The bikes have to be fulfill certain types of measurements, and they're just standard, whether you're 2 meters tall or a meter tall, okay? But as you see manufacturing, I think stepping to the future, we're going to see more of this custom equipment. And our commissaires, the UCI commissaires, very much will find themselves in the position of how do we measure customized material to ensure they fulfill regulations. So it's a really interesting space, and in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see a massive movement in this space. I think from the manufacturing side and safety side, right, where you have a lot of big brands right now manufacturing very high quality equipment, your Treks, your Specialized, your Pinarellos, just to name a few. But 3D printing, it decentralizes that and puts potentially equipment manufacturing into the mum and dad's garage, okay, because they have a computer, have a 3D printer, they put the materials in. But we have to be sure that 3D printing also fulfills all the security standards, the safety standards that the UCI currently has in place, ISO standards, to ensure that that head stem, that handlebar, that's going to hold up to when these professional cyclists are going down a mountainside 100 kilometers an hour. So why the 3D printing is really great and fantastic and opens up so much innovation and so much opportunity. We have to be sure that also those parts coming out of the ma and pa shops or garages is also safe.
It's funny, like Ineos particularly, they like the 1989 version of Batman, and the other teams are like Joker, constantly going, where do they get those wonderful toys, It's always something new. There's always something every year. Now, we've got some ripping questions, and of course, Jamie Anderson, he's going to come up with a belter. There is a lot of debate about the profit model for pro cycling and especially television rights. How might esports create new opportunities for teams and riders to gain a fairer slice of the pie?
Do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah, if you can.
We do.
I can throw it to John. But I don't know what sort of insights we're going to get there.
I mean, Jamie, he's always on. I think on the pulse, isn't he? I mean, it is an interesting one because I think there's a massive change coming in the sport of how we think about it. I mean, borders are moving. The traditional federation model of you join a national federation, which is affiliated with the UCI. I think with the new world that's starting to come, that mantra kind of gets turned upside down, and through the internet, I think the way that we view affiliation with our sports teams or our national federation very much changes. So I think as the UCI, we have to start to think about some of these things. We have to start to move. And I think there are a lot of models. You know, your traditional TV model, okay, of televising races. What does that look like when all riders probably have a GPS chip on their bike? They have all the data coming from sensors being potentially televised, or like I say, the data from those sensors is being put straight to an Amazon server, AWS server, and you can track riders over the internet. Potentially each rider has a camera on their bike, and those images are being televised live on YouTube. I mean, what does that world look like? And those are some of the thoughts we're starting to have now at the UCI, and how do we move towards that space to, in essence, be able to decentralize again, I think, how the sport of cycling is viewed all around the world.
Exactly. I was just going to say that, but with the whole, we're talking about the television model, but now the streaming is becoming so much more so brilliant. Recently, we had the Melbourne to Warrnambool, not a huge bike race in the European scheme of things, and yet they had 40,000 views on the streaming for the Melbourne to Warrnambool, which was just staggering. So that brings in a lot of other opportunities as well with the streaming and what you've just been talking about, Dodge.
I think it does, and I think cycling, we're currently leaving a lot of value on the table. We really are, because there is a traditional model of streaming, and this is where probably cycling esports has a massive advantage over the more traditional cycling. Is, are we going to go down that path of signing contracts through the traditional model of your Eurosports and your TV?
Just having a bit of a tech issue there. I think when I go to full screen, it conks out. Oh, well, he looks deep in thought.
Do we go straight for the model of...
Sorry, mate. We're just having a few little issues with the... Yeah, no, we've got you. It's come back. You there?
Am I back?
Yep.
You're back.
Sorry, mate.
All right, sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know how much you heard, but I was talking about, particularly esports. Does the traditional TV model of cycling fit with esports, or do they go towards the streaming model, towards your YouTubes and your various other platforms, and the whole advertising model that's probably attached to that whole streaming model? You see the ads that you're interested in, and I mean, we can go into down to a deep rabbit hole on that one, but just some thoughts.
I think the biggest issue, and I've been saying it since 2015, you only have to look at how the NBA do it or the NFL, and the issue is it all comes under the one banner. And the way that those sports do it is they have like a season pass, and all the games come under that, and then that way it's all controlled, and then they can distribute. But obviously with cycling, with all the different, your ASOs, your RCSs, your Flanders groups, they're all sort of fighting for their own races, and it's not under one banner. It's not unified. But with esports, I suppose moving forward is that needs to be captured. That needs to be captured under one sort of banner, so that if there is a revenue share, you're not going to have the same issues down the track. Because if an ASO go, all right, well, the big virtual race is the virtual Tour de France, well, they own that. And then we get back to the same issues, and teams or whoever go, well, we want to cut that. No, we can't give you a cut of that because we've built this up, and around we go again. But if it's started at the beginning in the right way under one banner, well, then you have an opportunity to distribute, because it's all coming through one filter, one channel. Once it splits up, that's when it becomes a real headache. But what we're seeing through things like GCN and Eurosport, that's a big innovation, because for a lot of the consumers, that's the first time that you can have a product that all the races throughout the year in the one spot. That's what cycling been starving for. But in terms of distribution back to the teams, I think there's big opportunities with blockchain. I mean, that's a whole other different question.
Thank you, Dan. I wasn't going to mention it because I think it's huge. Yeah. I think it's a huge movement that we need to jump on that train, because blockchain, for me, we have a massive potential there cycling, but we need to move.
Let's chat off air, because I know people that know very smart people in Singapore, and we might not have to do podcasts anymore. We might be able to just sit back on a bank of coin, mate.
How come, Dan, you haven't released a Dan coin yet, or what about an Iffy coin?
Iffy coin.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same. Yeah. Iffy, Dodge coin. There's already a Dodge coin.
Dodgy coin, Iffy coin.
Yeah. But a couple of the other regulations we want to talk to you about while we've got you here is obviously the super tuck's been a big talking point. And recently, we had the incident with Team Bike Exchange car, and they were going to collect a jersey out of the UCI, the Commissaire's car. And a lot of people are saying, well, if there wasn't even that regulation, they wouldn't even been in that situation. I mean, how's the feedback been on a lot of these regulations recently, as we said, with the super tuck, the biddens, all that sort of stuff?
Well, I think the conversation to date to me has been very much focused on the performance side. Okay, so the professional cycling element, and that's where the press is, that's where the emotion is, that's where we love to turn on the TV and we love to watch these races. So to me, the conversation has been very much about that performance, and I understand that. I mean, that was the world that I was a part of up until 5 or 6 years ago, focused on performance. When you go back and get a bunch of biddens from the team car, you put 10 into your jersey, one drops out of the back of your shirt, there's a commissaire there, almost there as if he's going to find you. So that's what the riders are concerned about. And I had dozens of riders call me, when the rule first came out and was first implemented, and the first few people were disqualified. And they were all saying, Michael, what are we going to do? Because during summer, the Tour de France, we go back, we put 10 biddens down our jersey, and we offload, one drops out, and there the commissaries define us. But I think there's also another thing to consider here is that from the UCI's perspective, there's a lot more things to think about. Again, the parenthesis of the professional cycling side and the performance side. There's a lot of other stakeholders that the UCI has to deal with, and which I don't think has been discussed so far. And I think which is a very valid point that list of not countries but cities or particular mayors, okay, that are saying, well, I don't really care about your performance. What I care about is that amount of litter, those biddens being dropped in my town. And that list of mayors that are saying that I don't want bike races in my town to come anymore, that list is getting longer, and that's a fact. So I think we have to broaden that conversation. Again, right now for me, it's been very much based around the performance side. But now that I've been in the UCI and starting to understand how it works, those are also conversations that are going on in the background about, well, let's just be mindful of that footprint or that the footprint that professional cycling has, particularly in Europe, of the litter, all the trash that's kind of dumped into the on the side of the road, and the cost that has for the town to pick all that up once the Tour de France or the Tour of Italy or Tour of Belgium leaves town, and that's a cost that sits on the race organizer or on the town itself. Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? Remember at AFL Grand Finals when they used to let the helium balloons go? And it was just what we did. And then they'd end up in a paddock bloody 600 Ks away and cows would be choking on them. Everyone's going, well, we can't do that anymore because the environmental impact. I mean, I suppose people have got to start thinking about it, because you just naturally don't think about, as you said, the towns having issues with it. You just assume a sense of entitlement. It's the Giro or it's the big races. they should be able to go through anywhere. But yeah, if there's a problem
I
with
think
it.
the bidons, drink bottles, I think should be classified slightly different to the normal rubbish. I agree 100% on the rubbish being thrown out in anywhere along the road, and litter spots works really well. Maybe we need another vehicle right at the back who does more of a cleanup. I don't know, but
that's
bottles,
a tradition, John. That's a tradition, and a great tradition where, you know, giving your bidon to a young child on the side of the road. I mean, that's a tradition. And I think the UCI really knew that before putting this rule in place, is we don't want to stop that, because that's great.
They fight over them, mate. I've never seen drink bottles laying around on the side of the road. They're actually fighting over them. When the race goes by, there might be rubbish left there, but there's no bidons left lying on the side of the road. But anyway, I suppose they're two separate issues. And not every race is a Tour de France. As Scotty McGrory said the other night when we were talking about it, there are small races where, in the back of, could be the Herald Sun Tour or whatever, where there's not big crowds and bins are thrown there. They are, it is a problem. I do understand that. But there's also the safety issue. As you just mentioned before, Dodge, you'd go back. When you're having when you got put into the support role, you have your all your pockets full and go up there with a dozen or more. But then everyone's got empty ones you've got to get rid of. It's all right to say, okay, you got to do it near the litter zone. Well, on a hot day, you need them now, you know, and you've got 20 or 30 bidons to get rid of. And so they're going to have to come up with a better way of doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the riders have been fantastic. The riders really have. You know, they've all embraced it. Of course, there's going to be a transition period. But I guess my point is, I think we need to be mindful about this, particularly in a world that's probably going more green. And the rule, the way that I see it, I mean, I wasn't part of the rule. That's not at all my department. But there's goodwill there. The rule was put into place to stop riders when you're riding up in the middle of, you know, national park. I mean, God knows where. It's to prevent a rider tossing a bidon into the stream that goes down into, you know, goes down into the river that goes into the ocean. That's what the rule is about. The rule is not about, you know, stopping riders for, you know, from passing their empty bidon to a young child. What we should also be mindful of, tossing full bidons into bunches of people when the peloton is riding past at 70 kilometers an hour, because you throw that bidon at, you know, it's got traveling at 50 k an hour plus the 70 kilometer an hour velocity of the peloton, and that bidon is traveling at 120 kilometers an hour. So let's also be mindful of that. But I know it's a sensitive topic, but I think the riders are great. They've done a great job. Yes, there's been a bit of grumbling. Maybe the rule could have been implemented better. But I see it a little bit like, I think, the helmet rule when it first came in. Everyone was grumbling, there was protests. But now, I mean, put your hand up if you line up in a race without a helmet. I mean, it's just crazy. So, you know, there's a transition period, and I'm confident. I'm confident we'll get there.
I reckon, I've got an idea. We put really big bins on the side of the road with great big targets, and we teach them to throw accurately, and you get points for going through the bullseye, or, you know, less points. And we have our own little series. So you have the King of the Mountains, and you can have the bullseye champion of the
quarterback
as well.
Quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Learn to throw them. One man, the team is the quarterback, and he throws it through the target. I can see it working.
John, we need new ideas in cycling. I love it. I love it.
Do you get to the point at times with the UCI that you're just like a sounding board for people having to whinge as well? Like, is it, particularly after 2020, do you find we like to whinge a lot more? Lockdowns had that effect?
I don't know. I mean, we all complain about our governments, right? We all do. You know, and the UCI is the government of cycling, and yes, I guess not always. No one's ever perfect. No government's always perfect. They make good decisions. You try to make decisions for the mass. I mean, if I can direct the conversation towards the super tuck, you know, that created a lot of tension. But again, I mean, if you look at the rule book, and I'm not going to pull my rule back out and go, Article 13.006 says, you know, but the rule of that all license holders have signed up to forever of the human has 3 points of contact to the bike: the feet on the pedals, the hands on the handlebars, and the backside on the seat. That's been in the rule book for ever since you were riding Iffy. I mean, that's been there forever. And,
Exactly.
And the UCI, I think, could have done a better job. We could have done a better job back when the Super Tuck first came in, because that's not respecting the hips on the seat. So that's putting hips on the seat on the top tube and pedaling. I mean, that's really dangerous. And this was a rule that was started by the riders and the CPA, the Riders Union. So, I mean, and I do know it's a younger generation thing. And I mean, John, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, but being in such a compromised riding position where, I mean, your bike's just not designed to be bearing weight on the top tube. And it's putting out the whole balance of the rider. All it needs is you hit a little pebble when you're in that Super Tuck, and you're probably going at 70, 80 kilometers an hour. I mean, I don't want to even think of the crash and the amount of people that are going to come down. I mean, I don't want to go on and on and on about this, about safety, but, you know, the more you do it, the more the probability increases is that you're going to have a crash.
I suppose it's the youngsters who are watching it and who aren't as experienced, and I can understand that. But I can tell you, I used to have a form of the Super Tuck. I used to actually lay my gut on the head stem, and my nose was like Caleb was touching the front wheel, and I used to absolutely fly down the descent. So it was virtually a Super Duck, and that's back in the 70s, mate.
That's a good size honker you got there. If you could add like 2 little bits of plastic pop up and sort of hook your nose.
Got a little scars from hitting the bump and the nose rubbing on the tyre, mate.
Could have got real error.
And I think there's another point here is the professionals. I mean, I used to do this. I'll be true. I mean, I didn't do the Super Tuck. I always had my hips, you know, I'd get right down the position, but my hips or backside would always be on the seat. But of course, we'd all scrunch down. But the professionals, it's one thing to do in the professionals where they've got closed roads, you know, they've got, you know, 100 motorbikes in front of them, 100 cars, you know, doing a complete road sweep, making sure there's nothing of danger to the riders coming. But you know, if we think about the context of racing in Australia, where there's probably a moving road closure, and you potentially got cars and motorbikes and dogs and cats and kangaroos coming onto the road, you know, and I think it's also about the example that the pros do set for those younger generations, and outside of the professional ranks, we just can't guarantee that the roads are closed. So I think it is dangerous. Yeah.
We've got a few more comments coming in. Tom Maloney says, "Are we in danger of cycling becoming an America's Cup?" Obviously, we're talking about technology before. Do you think that it could get to that point where the teams, like in Formula One, that you know are innovating to such a level, they've got such an advantage?
I think there is a risk, yeah. I mean, I talked to President Lapatian about this, and he has this saying of man over machine, which I think is very good way to explain it. Is we still want the athlete to be at the heart of the control of the bike, and that the best athlete wins, the one that trains the hardest. Technology will just make us go faster. But we also, I think, want to, you know, if we see the top men and women and they're in the professional ranks, that we also want younger generations to be part of that. We want juniors of today, the under 23s, we want those joining the ranks. And if they haven't got access to that same technology that professional teams have, then there's almost a recycling effect of, once you're professional, you stay in the professional ranks because you have access to all this technology. But those lower levels that don't have access to that technology, that gap will become bigger. So I think we need just to be careful, and I think we need to, just be conscious or mindful that technology, I think, makes the group smaller. It makes, there'll be less riders. The more technological we get, the bigger teams have more money to invest. The smaller teams always struggle. And the same goes for countries in the context of track cycling. So I think we have to be careful with it. We shouldn't stop innovation, but there needs to be a line in the sand where we draw and say, all right, that's enough.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dodge, in that.
Yeah.
I know you guys think I'm an old fart, but I love innovation. I love how the sport is changing. And, back when I was first racing, if you didn't have white socks, black nicks, and a bell on your bike, you got fined by a damn official. But I don't want to see major events like Tour de France being won because of that innovation, like what happened with Le Mans and Fignon back in '87 or whenever year it was. That's something I don't want to see in the sport. I love it. It's cutting edge. That bike you had up there before, Pinarello, looks fantastic. I look at the Bianchi bikes now of Bike Exchange. They look brilliant, but you don't want something on that to give an advantage to Ghana that no one else can beat him. We don't want that.
John, we have a rule at the UCI that is about commercialization, and any equipment being used in the World Tour or in any UCI sanctioned event, whether it's Olympic Games, all equipment has to be commercially available. So you have to have the ability to go to the shop and purchase that. Or go to the internet or an internet site, be able to purchase that. And going back to what I was saying about 3D printing and customization of equipment, it makes that rule difficult. And it makes our role to ensure that all equipment is available to all nations, all levels. It makes it challenging. So just going back to 3D printing, that's one I've been thinking about and waking up in the middle of the night. I mean, it's not a nightmare yet, but we have to adapt. We have to innovate and make our regulations, I think, to include such innovation. So
you can buy that those bars, the Ghana ones.
So that's a brand, okay. So that's a model of most, but of course they're going to be very expensive. You'll probably have to go to the factory to have them molded to your size. But as a model, yes, you can purchase those. But within the model, you can have different sizes and different measurements. And
you wouldn't get change out of $5,000. What do you reckon?
I wouldn't think. No, I don't think it'd be much change. No.
Yeah, right. We've got a few other questions or comments. Max, Carl, can we go back to blockchain? How can cycling make use of it? Just look at NFTs and also look at blockchain technology, particularly with tracking things like memorabilia. It could actually change the game for a thing like cycling. But if you've got an idea or a concept, why would you share it on this program? Why wouldn't you keep it to yourself and try and make a coin out of it? So we'll move on. Wombat Breath. He's just straight from the hip here, Dodge. He says, yawn. The pro peloton, including Velon, UCI, etc., have been talking about GPS and rider data being available to viewers for years. When are the UCI going to actually do, in capital, something? He's got the one word out there.
Don't think, just do.
What's the go, Dodge? Rider data. When are we going to commercialize it and give all the teams $500,000 each for it for the whole year?
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. I think, all right, how can I say this? What happens to that data? All right, today, if you're riding for Team Ineos, okay, so you have that data, okay, that's being streamed, that's being used, it's being televised. Then you go to Bike Exchange, or maybe the other way around. You start with Bike Exchange and you go to Ineos. All right. So who owns that data? Who does that sit with? So that's one of the complexities of that we're trying to think about. And I think the rider probably should own that data. But that's not the case right now. So there's a few things to think about, and it is complex. It is complex, and how is that under GDPR, which is the European data laws? How does that sit? So I think it's rather complex. Of course, we create a model. I think that where everyone can benefit from the use of data or the monetization of data. But it seems right now we haven't been able to find a formula that works for everyone. And I mean, the UCI isn't the only stakeholder that's taking decision on there. We've got teams, we've got athletes, we've got in the case of Velon, we've also got another stakeholder there. And how does all that potential revenue get distributed? So it's not easy, it's complex. You've also got race organisers in the middle there, so it's a very, very complex. If it was simple, I think it would have already been resolved, but we need to work on it. We do.
We've got another comment. Peter says, what about each team had a moto that carries bottles and each team takes it in turns to ride through the bunch to service their riders? Not sure.
Oof.
More motos around bunches, and if you've got 18 teams.
I think the growth of the amount of motorbikes in the last 10, 15 years has just exponentially risen. And to introduce even more vehicles into the convoy, I would be cautious about. That's not what the riders are asking. The riders are asking to reduce the amount of motos and vehicles in the convoy.
We've got another comment. Sheila Richards says, Seem UCI contradicts itself. Riders out of the saddle on climbs, butts are not on seat, but not 3 points of contact. I think the speed's a bit of a difference there going up as opposed to on a D. Yeah.
I mean, well, we can dig into all the rules, and then we can also find contradictions to every rule. But I mean, the rules are just general guidelines of good practice. We can pick any rule to pieces, but I think that we can't make a rule, because how complex would rules? The rule says that when you're sprinting and speeding over 60 kilometers, this rule, you can two points of contact. I mean, you're going to have a rule book that's it's already thousands of pages long.
Clearly demonstrates is when you come on the detour, mate. Just be careful, because the people watching this don't miss a trick. And if you slip up, this is like politics, mate. They will grill you.
and they're fine. That's fine. They're great questions, but I think cycling is inherently a complex sport. I mean, in what other sport do you need a whole set of regulations for the convoy and how the cars should drive and where they need to drive and the space between? Why can't cycling just be in a bloody football stadium and where it's a set thing and
it's called a velodrome. They do have some of that, on the velodrome, mate.
We've got another comment from Mr. Scott McGrory. Hello to my old teammate. How about when lightning almost hit your apartment in Italy, missed by about 3 meters? What happened there? He's frozen. Put him under the pump.
He's been struck by lightning.
He's been struck. The lightning struck his Wi-Fi. It's short. Scotty's question.
Scotty, you've done it again.
Circular Dodgers connection.
You've done it again, Scotty.
Well, can you answer this one from Jamie? He says, "What's the latest on scanning bikes during pro races? Are internal electric motors still a concern?"
I haven't heard them talking about that as much. Look, I think it's I don't believe in the pro peloton that there has been an electric motor in a bike. For a team to do that and keep that a secret, it's just not possible. That old chestnut with Cancellara was not true. Oh, he died. He's back. We lost you. You got struck by lightning, mate.
Yeah, the lightning just come down and struck me. No, that goes back to a long time ago. 2002. Scott and I were living in the same, I guess, kind of complex with down by the lake, and in the middle of a night there was a big storm, and this big lightning bolt kind of come down and hit the tree just outside, literally my front door, and it split the whole tree in half. And I was literally, my head was 3 meters away from that tree. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
There you go.
You wouldn't be with us now, mate. We're lucky you survived, eh? We are so lucky you survived. And not only that, you survived that, and you survived living in the same apartment block as Scott McGrory. So you're a man of many talents.
Well, we had Al Davis. I think we might have talked about this on the last time I was on the show. Al Davis. I was in the middle. I think Scott was on one side, and Al Davis is on the other side. So they were good times. Very good memories.
Rose between two thorns.
We taught.
Eh?
Well, we taught the Italians about barbecues, and so they were good times.
We've got a good comment for you, Dodge. Nojo Health says thing is, whether you agree or not, you need rules, otherwise it all gets out of control. I think UCI should have Mick being the voice more. He makes it sound sensible and refreshing with a thumbs up. So Nojo Health gives you the thumbs up, mate. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about as well is you've got a pretty up and coming successful nephew at the moment, Cameron Rogers, winning some national titles. What's the story there, mate?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a proud uncle there, I have to say. So Cam's first year junior, he's just won a bunch of. I think his first win or major win was the National Criterium Championships down. Are they still? Where are they now? Are they still in?
Yeah, Ballarat.
Ballarat, yeah, they're still in Ballarat. And
if he used to have been part of the bakery,
they're talking about the track on there as well. But anyway, yeah.
And then a couple of months later, he won the. I think he won the Omnium at the National Track Championships up in Brisbane. So I guess the Rogers family is going to a new generation of cycling. So I'm extremely proud. Yeah.
I've read an article that he wants to emulate his famous uncle. Did you get in his ear and say, listen, mate, don't put that sort of pressure on yourself. Just enjoy yourself. You don't need to go after the sort of the records that I toppled.
Well,
you'll just be disappointed.
No. I think he's ambitious, right? And but I think he has his parents are fantastic. I mean, Peter, my brother, and Rayleigh, his mother. Rayleigh comes from a triathlon background. She works for Trek Australia. My brother Peter was quite a good cyclist himself.
He was a superstar, mate. He was a great.
He was a good cyclist. He's got two parents that are very level-headed, and I think he wants to come to Europe. To have a little bit of a taste of what European racing is. I mean, he's got an uncle that's living in Switzerland and knows a lot about the cycling scene. So,
Who's that?
I'm very cautious of he's still young. He's 16, and I think he needs to enjoy the sport, and all young kids do. And there is massive flow of young talent that's coming through right now. The professional ranks moving from juniors straight to the professionals, but I don't think that's the norm. I think they're very they're standouts, and I think it's important to send a message to all the young girls and guys out there that want to make this transition to professional cycling. Just because you're not professional in your second year junior, it doesn't mean that path is closed. There's a few standout cases that have done that. But we need to let our kids progress, and we need to let them, do through, to grow, to learn, and not put the pressure on them. So, I hope there's not pressure on young Cameron to emulate that.
Is the problem now, the old model was like, let him develop, do your apprenticeship, take your time. Whereas you got 20, 21-year-olds winning the Tour de France. It's like, no, I'm ready to go. I want to go now. I don't want to do all that.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, because I ask myself, it always takes one to break the ice, if I say that. And then once one kind of walks through that door and starts winning races, does that open up the mental space of all these other, young kids?
Spot on, Dodge. That's exactly what's happened, mate.
Yeah. Well, he can do that. I can do that. And I just think that's a completely interesting movement. Yeah.
it's inflated the prices of young talent, particularly the ones that are looking at data and going, wow, I've looked at his numbers and he's off the charts. So they're getting massive contracts before they've actually won big races. And that's just because of, if they get him early, get him on a 3 or 4 year deal, that's it.
Yeah, well, I think for young kids, my advice would be to, reach out to the people that, Australia's great for this. We have a lot of wise heads in Australia in cycling, and I think for young generations, it's just really important not to go for the money. There's a good path to do, and the money is interesting, but there becomes a point in your career where probably money is not only the important thing, and I think it's the core principles that get you through. So, and for me, a core principle is good development, and I advise any young rider not just to chase the money. It's all about, if you want a long career, that is, it's about your principles, and it's about doing the hard work and being with the right people.
Last of the comments or questions before we wrap up with the Giro. Jamie Anderson again. To what extent does being an accomplished former pro and world champion in your own right help you with your UCI role?
Well, I think I see a lot, particularly in the equipment side. I'm seeing what the teams are doing. I'm seeing there's a huge push towards aerodynamics right now, and just going back again to Garner's bike, we're really starting to see the cycling smarts, the bigger teams that are making this transition to performance, and that's a massive push. And the performance element, I think, is really driving a lot of the sport right now. The super tuck, that's all about performance. That's about being aerodynamic. And as speeds increase, we're seeing record speeds right now within the peloton, and these just crazy average speeds. That's coming from aerodynamics. And the faster the riders are going, the more impact that aerodynamics has. So I can see a lot of those. Developments. But I also think that I'm still relatively in touch with the sport and what the pro riders are doing. But that's probably that window of opportunity. The longer that I stay out of the sport, I think the more it closes. So I think I have a good position. I'm understanding, I guess. I think the administration of the sport. I'm not so good on the politics of the sport, but I think I have an okay balance to be able to draw a picture of what's going to, or what are the trends and where we're going in the future.
Good stuff, mate. Well, you're definitely smarter than me.
I'm going to throw something in, because I've just had my darling wife just held her 5 fingers up. I don't know what she exactly means, but
I know we're going.
We're going to an art gallery tonight. It's Roan, this amazing street artist, and you had to book to get in the final night of this amazing exhibition. And we've got to be there in half an hour. I've still in my bike gear.
All right. Well, we better quickly.
You can keep talking, but I'm going to have to do a run.
Just give us your quick. Obviously, Caleb Ewan, the other talk. We haven't even mentioned that he's not in the race anymore. Fantastic effort with the 2 stage wins. There was talk that he crashed, but he didn't, and we were having a bit of an argument live, Johnny, via text, if he did crash or not. I was obviously correct, as always. He just had knee soreness and pulled out. But who's the predictions for the stage today? 1.5K finish on gravel there. You've got a Cat 2, Cat 3, another Cat 2 finishing on a Cat 1. It's pretty filthy. 160K.
Dodge, who do you reckon, mate?
A young talent from Quickstep is going to make his move today.
Evan Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Superstar. Yeah. He's a superstar.
He's just a superstar, and I love the kid. I think he's very humble. I think he's very polite. He's very, I think, respective of the of the whole culture and history of cycling. I just love the kid. I think he's carrying the weight of a country in Belgium, but I think he's going to make his move today. I'd just like to comment on Caleb. I think his second stage win was just a dominant performance. I think Caleb just completely stepped into a new paradigm of sprinting. I mean, his performance was just mind-blowing and just head and shoulders above kind of anyone at the moment. So what a ride. I mean, just took
both these stage wins, actually.
Yeah,
both these stage wins, because the other one we had to get out of jail reminded me of Robbie at his best. It was a sensational ride. But
yeah, and I agree, John. But that was the kind of traditional sprint, flat finish team effort. But I think his last stage win, I mean, he went from a kilometre out. I mean, and to be able to manage kind of everything that was going on, I think it was just basically one of the standout sprints of the last decade.
Yep. And who you reckon is going to win, Iffy? Stage 9?
Well, I've got a feeling that Simon Yates will step up tonight. He's
you reckon?
Yeah, he's had a couple of challenges, but he's coming better every day, and I reckon it's Simon Yates. But they're all going to have to beat Bernal, because Bernal has been the strongest over the last couple of climbs. So, but no, I'll go with Yatesy.
All right. Well, then I'll take Bernal, and then we've got all the top 3 covered.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being on the show, Dodge. We wish you all the best with your role, and we'll check in again, because the space is moving that quick. No doubt there'll be some big developments over the next couple of months with the esports and the virtual racing and all the tech side of things. And if we ever need to just unload on someone from the UCI, we'll just bring you on, mate, and get the fans to tee off.
The next time I'll ask you about Aussie mob called Full Gas, which I love the way they're doing it in the virtual. So next time we'll talk about Full Gas. I love the way they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
As we always say, if you want to get involved with the show, youtube.com/The Detour Podcast, tick on your notifications. Thanks for all the support. Tell your mates about the show, and we will be back tomorrow night to preview stage number 10 of the Giro. Go Yatesy. We'll speak to you soon.
Dan, John, thank you very much.
No worries, mate.
Dodge. Great to see you, mate.
Take care.
Bye.
This is the winning